Young lady over there, thank you.
Hi, I don't want to be filmed, so please don't film me.
Okay.
Okay, I want to start by just saying that I'm, like, as a Jew, I'm actually pretty ashamed to be here. And it's not because, as you say, that it reflects some hatred of myself or some underlying discomfort I have with whatever. That's not why I personally feel like ashamed to be in this room hearing you speak. The reason I feel ashamed is actually linked to identity politics in a much wider sense. And I think you used the phrase identity politics, but I don't think you really thought clearly through but contextualizing it alongside other kinds of identity politics. So, for example, when Bill Cosby made statements about African American culture and about Black people taking responsibility for African American culture or whatever, there was actually a huge backlash in the African American community in the US, basically saying, why are you airing our dirty laundry here, right? Which is quite similar to what people have said to you, I believe. Similarly, I'm sure what was the woman, she's living in Denmark now, I think, who wrote that really horrible book about the niqab and about Islam. Does anybody know what we're talking about? No. Anyway, if there was a Muslim woman or a former Muslim woman who one was speaking to or talking about Islam is inherently sexist and the niqab is inherently an evil thing, I'm sure a lot of Muslims would be pretty angry about that, logically. Or if there was a gay person who said, oh my god, gay pride is so horrible, you know, why are people so obsessed with their gay identity? Why do people organize on the basis of their gay identity? They just need to get over it. Why do they want to separate themselves? I'm sure a lot of gay people would be upset. And what is the common theme here is that minority groups don't like when a member of their minority, like, you know, say something that verifies majority out-group opinions of them and, like, negative stereotypes. It's just a fact of identity politics, okay?
Yeah, but what is your argument?
So what's the question?
Okay, sorry. So my question basically is, if we have identity politics, they exist, like, there are plenty of people that, like, blacks, gays, whatever, plenty of people have identity politics, they just exist. Jewish identity exists. Secular Jewish identity is a fact. Why is it so wrong for Jews to organize for Palestine on the basis of that identity? I'm not sure why you said that. That was you didn't understand it. You didn't understand why.
Sorry, what is so wrong for Jews to do what?
To organize for Palestine on the basis of to do Palestinian justice work, or to just organize on the basis of their identity.
Who said it is wrong?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and this gentleman here, please.
Rather like you, but further on. My name is Francis Barclows. I was the chair of Palestine Solidarity Campaign just a little way up the road from here for 2 years around the turn of the century. And I also founded the Brighton and Hove branch of Palestine Solidarity Campaign. I've now been thrown out of both of them for talking about the kinds of things that we're talking about here today. The sense of outrage that I had about Palestine from living in the Middle East led me to my involvement in Palestine politics. But curiously, parallel with that, I was involved in writing a PhD on the history of psychoanalysis, and as you probably all know, psychoanalysis is an extremely Jewish area of history. And it was absolutely assumed that I would want to look at that history from a Jewish point of view. And I was involved, therefore, in the Center for German Jewish Studies. And my thought initially was, well, you know, there's two different things. I can live with looking at German Jewish studies, and I can be interested in Palestine. It became very clear quite quickly that the two were totally incompatible, that it was not possible to be interested in German Jewish history and at the same time be a supporter of the Palestinians, and indeed I was made to feel that very clearly. I think my question is really about dealing with that problem in academia, a problem of a kind of love affair between academia and Jewishness. It's unthinking support of Jewish chauvinism, which really is, I think, at the basis of the problem. I think academia is very influential in the way that ordinary people think about the Middle East. So yes, it's how to deal with chauvinism, Jewish chauvinism, in academia and support of it.
I'm going to leave Gilad till last for this one. Carl, would you like to comment on either of those? First one is, why is it wrong for Jews to organise on behalf of Palestinians?
Well, I really do think that's a Gilad question. Because
Okay.
It's something he...
Indeed.
he I think, in a sense, I mean, the question about academia and its influence, well, or in its chauvinism as far as Jewishness is concerned, I think it is part of the wider problem I was identifying, and somehow the image that is created of the role of Jews in the world is another factor in why people somehow feel that they have such an identity that they deserve a state of their own. So I'm not sure, I'm not being an academic, I mean maybe the academics can answer, I'm not sure, I can't look at it from that side, but I can certainly see that it has effects, and obviously in your personal life it's had effects, but it also has effects on people's attitude to Palestine and Israel, because it's kind of sanctified by the way in which there is seen to be almost a subject of study in which Jews play a different part from other people. But maybe the academics themselves can answer that.
I probably, yes, I very much know what you're speaking about. Yes, I've seen it fiercely in the United States when any attempt to discuss these kinds of issues become blockaded, but very often not by other academics, very often actually by a public that maybe has been wound up by other academics. I think, as with any kind of generalization, it's more complex. One of the generalizations we hear all the time is that the entire population of Israel is gone fascistic, and certainly our popular view and our media view of popular kind of feeling in that area, Leibovitz, et cetera, suggests that. And yet I know very strongly from people I know there that there's an awful lot of opposition. It's just muted. And I think certainly in Britain, there's a lot of people who, certainly on the Israel-Palestine question, possibly on the Jewish question, probably have more complex kind of thinking about it, but just it's more difficult for them to find voice.
Do you want to comment on the young lady's point, or you want to leave that for Gilad?
I think I'll leave that for Gilad.
Okay. Would you like to say?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, your point is actually very important.
And just a minute, I want you to address also the fact that the young lady said she felt ashamed to be.
Yeah, I think that I you know, she has to address it, and you know, maybe even seek professional help, because we are nice people, and I don't think that you are intimidated, and there are quite a few Jewish people here, and it's really not clear what you should feel any shame. Actually, you should be proud of yourself that you can take the challenge and come here and discuss with us. However, to address your question, I believe, and I would love to see, as many Jews in this movement. Why? Because Israel is the Jewish state, and it commits its crimes in the name of the Jewish people. So yes, we want to see as many Jews in this room and in every form of activism,
Please, I already said that.
All right,
We're not going to use it if you don't.
it's okay. Respect, you know. We like to see as many Jews as possible in this movement. However, we have one problem. This movement, as I see it, is Palestinian solidarity movement. And it should be concerned primarily with Palestinians and with the crimes that are committed in Palestine by the Jewish states in the name of the Jewish people. This is why I don't really think that it is down to Jews to steer this movement. And when I oppose Jews in this movement who operate within Jewish cells, this is the point that I'm making. It's not about you. It's not about anti-Semitism. It's about crimes that are committed in Palestine. Is it clear? 1 minute. However, when I started to look into those issues to do with Jews-only cells within the left, I realized that at least categorically, they're not very different from Zionist cells. What are Zionist cells? They're Jews-only cells. If Ahmed from Gaza I should say, cannot move back to his house in Jaffa, why? Because this is a Jewish state. He manages to find his way to London, and he goes to the SOAS, and he sees that there is a very nice kind of group there, very active about Palestine, and he wants to join them, and then he realizes that he can't because these independent Jewish voices. And I find it very, very problematic. I really want to understand why Jews, even when they are not religious, they are not following any Jewish law, they still want to operate in a segregated cell. I think that this is a very big question. It deserves an answer, and I wrote the answer, and they're freaking out for a good reason.
Can I just respond quickly?
Yeah, go on.
I mean, I would say the answer is number one, because Jewish secular identity exists. You can't deny that it exists.
I don't
in the
deny it.
diaspora. People feel it, just like they feel a gay identity, or just like they feel that their like female identity or whatever other marginalized identity is important to them, or because they feel a cultural identity, like a lot of diasporic communities feel when they move.
Fine.
Right? They're like,
Fine.
like,
Okay. I address your point.
Can I just add one
No,
more
I
thing?
address your point. Jewish, and I admit to all of you, Jewish secular identity exists. Question. Are we allowed what it means? Are we allowed to ask, what it means? This is the issue. I want to ask this very simple question. And I can ask questions about Islamic identity and about black and about gays. Nobody will tell me not to ask these questions. But when I ask questions about Jewish identity, some of your people's freaking out.
That's not true. What I
It's
just
true.
explained when I spoke was that when black people say in public that black culture is to blame for the way African Americans live in the United States, they get hated on too. And that's because when there are stereotypes about a minority group, like Jews control the world, or
It
black
didn't
people
address the
are
issue.
lazy, when someone from that group says that in public, everyone else thinks it's true, and they can point to that person and say, look, he's a former Jew, and he says that, so you know what, it's okay for me to say it too, which is actually, when people were laughing at comments people were saying in here, was what I felt. But the other thing I was going to say, why Jewish solidarity is important, I think, is because...
What are you saying now?
Why Jewish solidarity in
All right,
Palestine is
yeah,
important.
yeah.
Why do I think it as? Because me, as an American, my dad donates to the ADL, I am specifically, particularly responsible for what's happening in Israel.
Indeed.
Right? And so I think as a Jew, I'm drawn to do Palestine justice work because I am a Jew and because I come from a Jewish American family.
You're welcome.
And there's plenty of solidarity that happens in that way. If you look at, like, again, an anti-racist organizing, there's so many examples of white people in the US, in Europe, in South Africa, who did anti-racist organizing as whites.
As I
From that
said,
identity position. So again, I would say it's not unique to Jews to do organizing in that
for
way.
sure. For
Okay.
sure. I said I really welcome every Jew on this planet
Yeah.
to join this movement.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
And I want to do it as a Jew with other Jews because
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay,
But the problem is when you steer that, when you want to steer, and I don't say that you're particularly trying to steer it, you know?
Okay, I have to give time to other
Yeah.
people in the audience.
Yeah.